Listen up. Anger is a powerful thing. It can surge through you like a wildfire, but you have to understand something. Silence can be your greatest strength when you're in the grip of it. I'm talking about controlling yourself when the world wants to push your buttons. People will try you, test you, challenge you, and make you feel like you're losing control. But let me tell you something. Control is never lost when you keep your mouth shut. Silence is not weakness. No. Silence is strength. When that anger comes up, it's easy to lash out, isn't it? You want to say something. You want to get your point across. You want people to know how you feel. But here's what you don't realize. Your words, once spoken, are out there. And the cost of those words might not show up today, but trust me, it will show up tomorrow. So let me be clear. Your silence is not a sign of submission. It's a sign of self-discipline. It's a sign of strength. You're saying, I control this moment. I control my actions. Now, I know when you're angry, every bone in your body is telling you to respond. But that response, that might be the very thing that breaks everything. You say something in anger, and you might regret it for years. You can never take those words back. The damage they do is done. I don't care how many apologies you give after the fact. There are some things that words can't undo. And when you speak in anger, you're not just damaging the situation, you're damaging yourself. You're losing your power. You're losing your dignity. You're losing control. Here's where silence steps in. You ever heard someone say, it's not what you say, it's how you say it? I'm telling you right now, it's not what you say, it's whether you say it at all. When you're angry, the last thing you need to do is react in that moment. Take a breath. Step away. Walk out if you have to. Don't be the person who lets anger dictate your response. You want to win? You want to show real power? Then show restraint. Show that you have the strength to control your emotions, not let your emotions control you. You don't need to prove anything to anybody. Anger is a temporary feeling. It'll pass, but the consequences of a rash word or decision, those can last a lifetime. Every single reaction has a cost, and that cost is sometimes too high. It's too high for your peace of mind. It's too high for your relationships. It's too high for your future. So when you feel that anger start to rise, don't let it make decisions for you. Let silence speak for you. Sometimes you just got to walk away. Sometimes you got to exit the scene before you do something you can't take back. People will test you, but how you respond defines who you are. Silence doesn't make you weak. It makes you wise. It makes you a strategist. It makes you someone who knows that the best moves are often the ones that don't require a word. Let me tell you something about that silence. It's time for reflection. While you're silent, take a moment. Think about what really matters. Think about what you want to achieve. And then ask yourself if lashing out right now is going to get you any closer to that goal. Think about your family, your reputation, your future. Think about what you're about to lose by allowing anger to take the wheel. You see, it's not about being perfect. It's about being smart. When you feel that heat in your chest, that fire in your veins, take a step back. Don't say a word. Use that moment to reflect. Think before you act. This is your moment to show just how strong you really are. You don't have to shout to be heard. You don't have to fight to win. Sometimes the best response is no response at all. Stay silent. Stay strong. Let your silence be the statement that everyone respects. So, the next time you feel that rage boiling up inside you, stay silent, because in silence, you'll find the strength to control yourself, to reflect, and to keep your dignity intact. you'll be better for it. And when the dust settles, you'll realize that silence was the answer all along. Silence is often misunderstood. People think it's just the absence of sound, but let me tell you, silence is so much more than that. When you choose to remain silent, especially in the face of anger, you're not just holding back your words, you are asserting control over the situation. You are not letting emotions or external pressures dictate how you respond. Silence is power, not weakness. It's not a passive retreat. It's an active decision to be strategic with your energy. Think about it. When you're angry and you open your mouth, you give that anger a voice. You give it life, you fuel it. But when you stay silent, you starve it. You don't allow it to take over your thoughts, your actions, or your life. In that moment of silence, you're reclaiming your power. You're telling yourself, I don't need to react immediately. I don't need to prove anything to anyone right now. You're giving yourself the space to think, to breathe, and to process the emotion rather than just reacting impulsively. Silence lets you think before you speak, and that's a game changer. It's the moment when you hold the keys to your destiny. It's the difference between reacting in a way that could ruin everything and responding in a way that keeps your integrity intact. People think silence means you're weak because it's harder to stay quiet than it is to let your anger run wild. But silence takes a level of emotional intelligence that most people never reach. You're showing maturity when you resist the urge to lash out. You're demonstrating that you understand the cost of words and that you're unwilling to let those words be the vehicle that carries your anger to the next level. When you choose silence, you're saying, I'm in control here. I decide how this plays out. It's not always easy, but it's always worth it. Silence is your shield against making a momentary mistake that could cost you long term. It's your armor when the world wants to bring you down to its level. When you understand the power of silence, you become untouchable. You rise above the chaos, the noise, and the madness. And let me tell you, that power is unstoppable. Mastering self-control is one of the most critical skills you can develop in life, especially when it comes to handling anger. The moment that heat starts to rise inside you, the temptation is strong to just let go, to say whatever comes to your mind, to unleash everything you've been holding back. But that's not mastery. That's losing yourself to the moment. The true self-control is in holding back, in taking a breath, in recognizing that just because you feel something doesn't mean you have to act on it. When you master self-control, you're not letting the external world dictate your internal state. You become aware of the emotions surging through you, but you learn how to handle them with poise. That takes practice. It takes focus. But the more you practice, the more automatic it becomes. In those moments when anger threatens to take over, you realize that you don't have to give in. You don't have to be a slave to your emotions. You can stand firm, rooted in your peace, and choose to let that anger pass instead of letting it dictate your actions. Self-control means you don't speak out of turn, you don't lash out in frustration, and you don't say the things you'll regret later. You become more than just a reaction. You become a thinker, a strategist. You weigh the consequences before acting. In a world that thrives on instant reactions and emotions on display for everyone to see, self-control is your secret weapon. It's the ability to stand still in the midst of the storm, to let the waves of emotion crash around you, but never let them move you. People who lack self-control are often ruled by their impulses, responding without thinking and leaving a trail of hurt behind them. But you, when you've mastered self-control, are able to make decisions from a place of calm and clarity, not from a place of anger. You don't let the heat of the moment determine your actions. You remain grounded, focused on what truly matters. True mastery comes from understanding that in those heated moments, silence is often the most powerful thing you can do. Self-control is knowing that you don't have to prove anything. You don't need to speak every time you're upset. You don't need to defend yourself in every argument. Sometimes, the greatest show of strength is in holding your tongue, in pausing, and in resisting the urge to speak until you are clear on how to handle the situation. The beauty of self-control is that it doesn't just protect you from saying the wrong things. It also protects your peace. It gives you the power to choose your battles wisely, to decide which moments are worth engaging in and which ones are better left in silence. Mastering self-control is learning that you have the authority to stay calm, stay centered, and take the time you need to act with intention, not impulse. It's not about suppressing your emotions. It's about channeling them in a way that benefits you and those around you. When you master self-control, you take back the reins of your life. You stop being a victim of your anger, and instead, you become the master of your own actions. Regret is one of the most powerful forces that can haunt a person. Once you've said something in anger, it's gone. It's out in the world, and no matter how many times you apologize, you can never fully erase the damage. That's the danger of acting on impulse, of allowing your anger to make decisions for you. It may feel good in the moment to vent, to express how hurt or frustrated you are, but in that instant, you're trading your peace for temporary satisfaction. And the problem is, that satisfaction is fleeting. What lasts, what lingers, is the regret. Regret doesn't just come from what was said. It comes from the realization that you didn't control the situation. You let your emotions lead you, and now you're left picking up the pieces. You're left wondering how things got out of hand and wishing you had just kept your mouth shut. The worst part of regret is that it doesn't just affect the situation, it affects you. It eats at your sense of self-control, your confidence, your peace of mind. You start questioning whether you're strong enough to control your emotions, whether you have what it takes to handle the heat without losing your cool. That's why silence is so valuable. When you remain quiet, you avoid that regret. You give yourself the space to cool off, to think through your emotions before you act. If you've ever said something in anger that you regretted, you know how quickly things can spiral out of control. What starts as a small argument can escalate into something much bigger, something you never intended. And once you've unleashed those words, there's no taking them back. They become part of the story, part of the history of the relationship, part of how others see you. Even if you try to repair the damage, there's always a piece of it that remains, a mark that can't be completely erased. When you choose silence, you avoid all that. You give yourself a moment to pause, to reflect, and to choose the right words. It's a decision not to let the moment dictate your future, not to let one bad choice define you. Silence offers you the opportunity to reflect before acting. You might be angry now, but by staying silent, you allow yourself to consider the bigger picture, to see how your words and actions will impact your life in the long run. The momentary release of anger doesn't justify the damage it might cause later. And here's the truth. Regret doesn't just damage relationships with others, it damages your relationship with yourself. Every time you act out of anger and regret it, you chip away at your own sense of integrity. You lose trust in your ability to handle situations calmly and wisely. But when you stay silent in those moments, you build trust in yourself. You show yourself that you have control, that you don't let emotions govern your actions. You build a stronger foundation for your future choices. Ultimately, avoiding regret is about protecting your future from the consequences of impulsive actions. It's about building a life where you don't have to look back and say, "I wish I hadn't done that." Silence is the tool you can use to create that life. It's the shield that protects you from the fallout of hasty words and reactions. Silence allows you to move forward without the weight of regret holding you back. So, when that anger rises, remember, The cost of silence is nothing compared to the cost of regret. Every reaction has a price, and the truth is that price is often far higher than we anticipate. When we react out of anger, we think we're defending ourselves, standing our ground, or making a point. But the cost of that reaction is always more than we expect. It's easy to think that your words or actions in the heat of the moment won't have consequences, but let me tell you, nothing happens in a vacuum. Your reactions, especially when they're fueled by anger, ripple out and affect not just the situation, but your reputation, your relationships, and your own peace of mind. When you react impulsively, you're letting the moment control you. You're allowing someone else's actions, words, or behavior to dictate your response. But the cost of that reaction is surrendering your power. The moment you let anger drive you to speak or act in a certain way, you've handed over your control, and once you've lost that, it's hard to regain it. You become a prisoner of your emotions, unable to break free from the grip of that immediate reaction. The cost of that loss of control is significant. It can affect your career, your family, your friendships, because when you react in anger, it's not just the immediate person you're confronting that feels the heat. It's everyone around you who sees your loss of composure, who feels the tension, who may begin to question your ability to handle difficult situations without blowing up. And let's not forget the long-term cost. A single rash reaction can change the course of a relationship forever. You might think you're making a point, standing up for yourself, but in the process, you could be burning bridges. Words spoken in anger leave scars that don't always heal easily. They may not even be intentional, but once they're out, the damage is done. What's worse is that those words can come back to haunt you. People remember the times you lost control, the moments you said things you didn't mean. And while you might be able to apologize, the trust that was eroded can take much longer to rebuild. There's also the personal cost. Every reaction in anger is an emotional drain. It may feel like relief in the moment, but once the anger passes, you're left with the emotional fallout. You feel drained, unsettled, and often a bit ashamed. You carry that emotional weight with you, and it affects your peace. You begin to question your ability to handle your emotions, to keep your composure, and to remain calm under pressure. That self-doubt only increases with each impulsive reaction. The emotional cost, in the end, is the peace you could have had if you had chosen to remain silent, to let the moment pass without responding. The price of a reaction doesn't just affect you, it affects everyone around you. When you react out of anger, you set a tone. You teach others that it's okay to lose control, to say whatever comes to mind, to not think about the consequences before acting. People begin to expect that from you, and if that becomes your pattern, if people start to believe that every little thing will set you off, you lose respect. You lose the ability to influence, to inspire, to lead. People don't want to be around someone whose reactions are unpredictable or volatile. The cost of that reaction is your reputation. Once you lose it, it's hard to get back. When you respond thoughtfully, when you take a step back and resist the urge to react, you're protecting not just your peace, but the integrity of your relationships and your own self-respect. You're making a choice to stay in control. You're not giving away your power to anger or to anyone else. The cost of choosing silence in that moment is small compared to the damage that an impulsive reaction can cause. It's a choice that keeps you calm, keeps you centered, and keeps you from paying a price that will only hurt you later. So, before you react, think about the cost. Is it worth it? Would you rather hold on to your power, your peace, your integrity? The answer should be clear. There is strength in knowing when to walk away. And this is a lesson many people don't fully understand. Too often we're taught that to stand our ground means we have to stay in the fight, to keep pushing forward no matter what. But real strength comes in knowing when to disengage, when to step back and remove yourself from a situation that's only going to escalate. Walking away doesn't mean you're weak. It means you're wise. It means you're smart enough to recognize that not every battle is worth fighting, and not every confrontation deserves your energy. When you walk away from a situation, especially one that's fueled by anger or tension, you're not running from the issue. You're giving yourself the space to process, to think clearly, and to return with a level head. There's an incredible amount of power in taking control of your emotions instead of letting them control you. When you stay in a heated situation, all you're doing is allowing your anger to take the wheel. And when anger is in charge, it blinds you. It clouds your judgment and makes you say or do things you'll regret later. But walking away gives you the opportunity to take a step back, to breathe, and to come back to the conversation with perspective. It's in those moments of silence that you find the strength to stand tall, to take back control, and to handle things in a way that aligns with your values and your goals. Walking away also sends a message. It shows that you're not desperate for approval, validation, or a confrontation. It shows you have a sense of self-worth, that you don't need to prove yourself in every situation. Too many people think that walking away makes them seem weak, like they're backing down from a challenge. But it's actually the opposite. It's about understanding that there's power in choosing when to engage and when to remove yourself from the chaos. Sometimes, the strongest thing you can do is simply walk away. Not because you're afraid or defeated, but because you're confident enough to know that the situation doesn't deserve your time or your energy. By walking away, you also protect your future. Every heated moment, every argument that spirals out of control comes with consequences. Words are like arrows. Once they're released, they can't be taken back. Walking away allows you to avoid adding to that arsenal, to avoid making decisions in the heat of the moment that could come back to haunt you. The truth is, sometimes the situation is not worth your time or your emotional investment. Walking away doesn't make you a quitter, it makes you strategic. It shows that you know when to fight and when to save your strength for something that truly matters. Furthermore, walking away demonstrates resilience. Life is full of challenges, and not all of them require you to confront them head-on. There's no shame in walking away from an argument, a toxic environment, or a confrontation that isn't serving you. In fact, it takes great strength to walk away from something that's not contributing to your growth, your peace, or your happiness. It's a testament to your ability to prioritize your well-being over being right or getting the last word. And here's the kicker. When you walk away, you don't just preserve your peace, you increase your power. People will respect you more when they see you walking away from drama, from unnecessary conflict, and from situations that don't serve you. They'll see that you know how to handle pressure, how to stay calm under fire, and how to navigate through life without letting anger or pride make your decisions for you. The power is in your ability to choose when to stay and when to go. And in knowing that walking away doesn't mean you've lost, it means you've won. You've kept your peace, you've kept your dignity, and you've kept your strength. In life, we're often faced with moments where we have to make a choice to react impulsively or to reflect before acting. The temptation to react is always there, especially when emotions like anger, frustration, or even hurt are involved. It's easy to react because that's the instinct. We want to defend ourselves, we want to set things right, we want to express how we feel. But here's the truth. When you react without thinking, you're letting your emotions control you, and that's where things can go wrong. Reflection, on the other hand, is a deliberate choice. It's the conscious decision to step back and give yourself the space to process the situation, to consider the long-term consequences of your words or actions, and to make a decision that aligns with your greater goals. When you react in the heat of the moment, you're making decisions based on immediate emotions without taking into account the full picture. You're thinking in terms of right now, not what will come after. What might feel satisfying in the moment, a sharp word, an angry response, can quickly lead to regret, hurt feelings, and a situation that spirals out of control. But when you take the time to reflect, you're pausing long enough to gain perspective. You're stepping outside of the emotional whirlwind and asking yourself, is this really worth it? Is this the response I want to leave behind? What will this situation look like in a week, a month, or a year if I act on impulse? Reflection gives you the power to respond, not just react. A response is thoughtful, measured, and intentional. A reaction, however, is often driven by the need for instant gratification or a quick release of built-up emotions. And while reacting might give you a brief moment of release, responding after reflection can lead to greater clarity and peace. It gives you the opportunity to choose your words carefully, to express yourself without escalating the situation, and to avoid unnecessary conflict. There's also strength in the act of reflection. It takes a strong person to resist the urge to react, to sit with their emotions and not let them dictate their actions. This kind of emotional discipline is not something that comes naturally. It's built over time, through practice and awareness. And when you start practicing reflection instead of reaction, you start to see life differently. You begin to understand that not everything requires a response. And sometimes, silence is the most powerful tool you have. It's in that silence that you can gather your thoughts, align yourself with your values, and choose the best course of action. The true beauty of reflection is that it not only preserves your peace, but also your relationships. Reacting in anger might feel good in the moment, but it often leaves a trail of damage behind. Words spoken in anger can cut deep and leave scars that last long after the moment has passed. But when you reflect and respond thoughtfully, you allow space for understanding, for empathy, and for resolution. You give the other person the opportunity to see that you're not driven by impulse, but by a desire for clarity and a mutual solution. Reflection also gives you the chance to check yourself. It forces you to ask whether your emotions are justifiable or whether you're projecting something that's not related to the situation at hand. Often, our reactions are colored by past experiences, insecurities, or things that are happening outside the current situation. By reflecting, you create a moment of self-awareness that keeps you from unnecessarily burdening others with your unresolved feelings. The key to mastering your reactions is recognizing that every moment is a choice. Every time you're faced with a challenge, with a disagreement, with a test of your emotions, you have the power to choose whether you react in haste or reflect before you act. The more you practice reflection, the more you realize that it's not about avoiding conflict or never expressing yourself. It's about choosing the right way to express yourself, the right moment to speak, and the right words to use. Reflection isn't about holding back your feelings. It's about honoring your feelings in a way that serves you and those around you. It's about knowing that your words, your actions, and your decisions have weight. It's about using your emotional intelligence to steer through life with intention and purpose. And ultimately, it's about creating a life where your peace isn't dependent on the chaos around you, but is grounded in the way you choose to respond to it. In life, we face many challenges, and one of the most powerful tools we can carry is the ability to stay silent when anger threatens to take over. It might sound simple, but mastering this skill is no easy feat. The world around us is filled with chaos, conflict, and triggers designed to bring out our emotions. But how we handle those moments, how we choose to react, defines not only our character, but also the quality of our relationships and our peace of mind. Anger is a natural human emotion, and there's nothing wrong with feeling it, but it's how we respond to it that matters. The key is not to suppress or ignore your emotions, but to understand them, to recognize when they are starting to cloud your judgment, and to pause before you act. That pause, those moments of silence, are where your true strength lies. When you stay silent, you give yourself the opportunity to think. You allow yourself to reflect, to gain perspective, and to make decisions that are in alignment with your best self, rather than reacting out of impulse or emotion. Understanding the power of silence is a game changer. It's not about being passive or disengaged. It's about being intentional, about choosing your response wisely. Silence is not weakness. It's a sign of emotional maturity. It's the courage to resist the urge to react in the heat of the moment, knowing that what you say or do in that moment could have far-reaching consequences. Silence allows you to keep your peace, to maintain control of your emotions, and to avoid unnecessary conflict. It's a powerful way to protect not only yourself, but also those around you, preventing harm that may be caused by words spoken in anger. Mastering self-control is essential to this process. When we allow our emotions to take control, we give away our power. Self-control isn't about suppressing your feelings. It's about choosing to respond thoughtfully instead of reacting impulsively. It's about knowing that your emotions don't have to dictate your actions. You can feel anger, frustration, or disappointment without letting those feelings control you. The more you practice this, the more natural it becomes. You begin to see that you have the power to choose your response in any situation. You don't have to say the first thing that comes to your mind. You can take a breath, reflect, and decide how you want to engage with the world around you. Regret is a heavy burden to carry. Once words are spoken, they can't be unsaid. The damage they leave behind can linger long after the moment has passed. But by staying silent when anger rises, you avoid the regret that comes from saying something in the heat of the moment. You preserve your relationships, your peace of mind, and your integrity. Every reaction has a cost, but silence has none. It gives you the time and space to process your emotions, to think about the long-term consequences of your actions, and to choose the best path forward. The cost of a reaction is high. It can lead to hurt feelings, broken relationships, and a loss of respect. But when you choose reflection over reaction, you empower yourself to respond in a way that protects your peace, your dignity, and your future. You avoid the unnecessary fallout of rash decisions and allow yourself the space to make choices that reflect your highest values. In those moments of silence, you regain control, and in that control, you find your strength. And remember, there is incredible strength in walking away. The decision to walk away from a confrontation, from a toxic situation, or from an argument that's escalating doesn't make you weak. It makes you wise. You don't have to engage with every conflict, and you certainly don't have to fight every battle. Sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is to remove yourself, to preserve your energy, and to allow yourself the time to reflect before re-engaging. Walking away shows that you value your peace and that you know your worth. It's an act of strength, not avoidance. When we take the time to reflect, we unlock our true power. Reflection allows us to see the bigger picture, to think beyond the immediate emotional reaction, and to make decisions that are in our best interest. It's the practice of responding, not reacting. And in this process, we not only protect our peace, but also cultivate greater emotional intelligence, stronger relationships, and a sense of self-respect that no one can take from us. So, in those moments when anger rises and the temptation to react seems overwhelming, remember this. Silence is not the absence of strength, but the presence of wisdom. Take a step back, reflect, and allow yourself the grace to choose a response that will serve you, not just in the moment, but for the rest of your life. Because true power doesn't come from reacting, it comes from knowing when to stay silent, when to reflect, and when to walk away.